Hi guys, my name is Bill, and in this video I want to show you how to troubleshoot the oven on your electric stove. Alright, so what we got here is a Whirlpool oven. It's an electric stove, same one I've been working on. I'm trying to get a bunch of videos done on this because I know somebody who needs one, so once I'm done doing some troubleshooting videos on this, I'm actually giving it to somebody. So what we're going to troubleshoot this time is the bake element. And we're going to take some ohm readings and tell you about the voltage, and that's about it. Okay, so real quick, on most electric ovens there are three things, or basically three things, that control the oven turning on, baking your food, and so forth. The first thing is going to be the control board, or if you have a knob for the oven. Basically the power comes into this, and then from here the power goes down to the element. What controls the actual temperature is the temperature probe. So if you have an oven that's not turning on or cooking at the right temperature or something like that, your little probe up here in the corner, I don't know if you can see that or not, that little probe right there, this guy is what tells your stove what temperature it is. So that could be bad, and that would prevent the bake element from coming on. So that's the second thing. And of course, if your bake element is broken, then of course that would be bad. I mean, they don't have to necessarily look broken to be bad, but most of the time when these do go, they burn like a sparkler on the 4th of July, and then it's pretty obvious that this is shot. Okay, so let's say you turn your oven on and nothing happens, it doesn't get warm. The first step in the troubleshooting process would be to make sure that the stove is getting the correct power. Now generally I do that by turning one of the top burners on, and if they glow red hot, then that's pretty safe bet to say that the stove's getting the proper 240 volts, because that's what the elements on top take. So if you turn one on, it glows red, the stove's getting the correct voltage. The second step would be then to, of course, look at the bake element and look for a hole or where it would have burned up or something like that, and that's a pretty clear indication that the bake element's bad. So if that looks fine, then of course the next step would be to pull it out from the wall, look at the back and look at the wiring, and look for anything that, burnt wires or plugs or something like that. Okay, so let's check the voltage. Now, one way would be to turn the burner on and see if it glows red hot, but this is for those who turn their top burners on, nothing. Bake doesn't work, so then you need to move on to checking voltage. So here's a typical 3-prong stove cord plug. So we got 240 across here, and from here 120 and 120. So we have power here. So let's plug the cord in and test it at the bottom of the stove, make sure the cord's good. Okay, so now we're going to check the terminal block where the cord connects to the stove. So from one leg to the center, 120. Center to the other side, 120. The outside, 240. Okay, so we're 100% sure that the stove is getting the correct voltage. Now real quick before we move on, if you don't get power at your plug here, you need to check the breaker in your panel box in your house. You could have a trip breaker or a bad breaker. Not going to get into that on this video. Right now we're just concentrating on whether you have power here, making sure you do, to the cord, to the stove, and that's what we're concentrating on. Okay, so let's say the bake element looked fine and everything else looks fine so far. Now at this point we're going to unplug the stove from the wall, and we're going to ohm out the bake element. So what you want to do here is remove one of the wires. Open up your oven door, see where the bake element goes through the back of the stove, and then find it back here. You're going to see two little spade terminals down here. I pulled one wire off. I'm going to connect my meter to 1, side and then the other. My meter's set on ohms, and 23 ohms. So the bake element's good. Now if you get a reading that looks like that, the bake element is definitely bad. So here's a reading for a good one and a bad one. Okay, so the next thing we're going to move on to is the temperature probe. Now that was the little finger inside the oven that basically tells the control board what temperature it is. And here's what the back of it looks like. It's got 2 wires going to it. Now at room temperature, give or take a couple ohms, you're going to get a reading of about 1080 ohms, or 1.08 kilo ohms. So here's our 1074 ohms at, basically room temperature. And so this temperature sensor is good. Now again, if you get a reading that looks like that, then of course it would be bad. Or if you get a shorted reading like that, then it's definitely bad. So you want the 1080, give or take a little bit, and that's going to be a good temperature probe. Alright, so to finish up this video here, you have proper voltage, temperature probe's good, bake element's good. The last thing that leaves is going to be your control board. So if all those things check okay, and you still don't have any heat when you turn the bake function on your oven, then basically you're going to need to replace the main control. Now those little guys right there are the relays for the bake and the broil power. And a lot of times if you look real close at them, you can see that maybe the contacts are burned up or something like that, and they're not really replaceable, at least not at my skill level anyway. It's always just requires replacing the entire control board to get your oven to work again. So there you have it, a little bit of troubleshooting on an electric oven. Thanks for watching.